Just finished the master class, and I'm sure you guys have a lot of thoughts on what Dr. Harris said to you today. So, just speak freely. What comes to your mind after being introduced to his theories and his opinions about music?
I have a lot to learn. I think that's a big point. I think. Oh, sorry. I think it's great. He gave me information that I know where. It's like a launching board. It's like I know where to go from now.
Mm-hmm.
Place to start.
Sean?
I think what I found most interesting, especially when he was getting into certain specific musical concepts, was how he related it to some kind of story. We've always talked about how your solo has to be a story, but like the technical aspects can be a story too. And the fact that he thinks on it on so many different levels just makes, you have to think on so many different levels. I think that was probably one of the most important things I learned from today.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar to that actually. The best part for me was also, it was sort of had like a philosophical air almost to it when he was explaining the theory concepts he was talking about. But I don't know. I feel like it's a great way to like keep you interested and keep you wanting to know more, because it's one thing to say, well, this is the scale and this is what you do with it and all that stuff, but to connect it like that really makes it sort of a circle, and and you go from here to here, and this is why. And the stories he was using, it was great, and really makes me want to learn more about it.
I know when we allowed Barry to expound, we really understood the whole mathematics behind the process of music, and it's more complex than most people are thought to believe. And even musicians, it's like there's always room for fine-tuning. Do you guys have any thoughts?
You always there's always room to get better, and when there's not, then you should stop playing music. Mm-hmm. So I just like the fact that I was able to hear what he was talking about, even more importantly than hearing the theory, because a lot of the things he was explaining, when I've listened to records that he's played, I could hear it. So for me, hearing it, when he got on the piano, started playing it, for me that was the best teacher.
Okay. Do you guys feel changed in any way from having to play for somebody so legendary? What are the thoughts going through your head? It's like, do you feel like, oh my gosh, there's somebody really listening to every note I'm playing and evaluating it? Is that difficult, or what's that process like?
Well, it was, I guess, it was inspiring, I guess, just having someone behind you, or me. I guess he was directly behind me, so just having someone behind me who, could see everything I was doing, and, I guess it tries to make you play your best, or play more honest. At least it did for me. Like, I felt like if I'm to really gain anything from this, I got to play the way I play, because if I try to be dishonest about my playing and trying to do things that I can't do, I'm going to gain nothing from this. So he made you honest. He made you play the way you play, and then, I think that was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I also think, first of all, it's really encouraging to have somebody like that. Well, first of all, like when we got done playing, he acknowledged that it sounded, decent, and that felt great to be like, well, here's this guy that is, like I said before, is a monster, and he was like, oh, yeah, sounds good, which was great. And then also I really liked at the end. It was really encouraging to. One of the last things he said was that he hopes that we all keep playing and everyone keeps playing, and just to be the best they can, and to try and keep it our music. And it's really like sort of uplifting. There's a lot of like you can get really dark about jazz and studying music and stuff like that, but it was really like a bright thing to say.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you guys consider your process changed at all from this experience?
Well, you know, I got some of these concepts 10 years ago from him, and I got to hear some of these same kind of things. I think that at that moment, that really directed my ear in a certain way, and I think today it reiterated it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, you have anything to add? So what are you guys going to take from this? More structured practicing, more structured listening, new way of listening, maybe going back and checking out things like the 16th note triplets and triplet fields on ballads but what else? Is there anything like more on a higher plane?
I think what Sean was talking about before with adding a context to your practicing in the scales, not just being this scale, that scale. There's a story behind it. Thinking of it that way, I think, puts it into context in my mind that at least, makes me want to connect them and makes things, my practice method, I think, will change to try to incorporate that to make it more interesting for me, because I know that when you're interested, you're, really working at it, and I think it'll get better that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other thoughts? No? Do we have any specific questions for Dr. Harris? Ask him about triplets.
Now mention the fact that Barry's here.
Okay. Well, Barry Harris just walked in, and we'd like to invite him up to the stage, if he would. Okay.
I didn't know that we have a thing like this. No, I prefer this. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Barry, how often do you critique musicians? Do you?
Well, I teach every week.
Mm-hmm.
I teach every week here in New York, and I teach at different schools, and so we just go through different things, See, there's certain things that they've told us, example, there are things that have been told to musicians. See, we learn from hard knocks. You don't have no school to go to, nothing like that. And like the piano player, left hand is moved up, where the piano player's left hand was down low. Now they say you interfere with the bass player if you play low. And I've never known a bass player who's qualified to have a bass. See? Piano players know much more about harmony than bass players. Bass players always stood to the left of the piano so they could look at the piano player's left hand. And so things are different now, We got, somebody came up with the idea of the piano player supposed to have his left hand up here, and they played single notes with this hand, and we played chords with both hands like that. Two-handed things, That's the only way we learned how to play, was two-handed, And so then then I try to figure it out. I say, well, now how did they learn how to play like that? And like I'm one of the oldest pianists. Hank Jones is one of the oldest. Well, we had Duke Jordan, who's still alive, and we had John Lewis. And none of us played like that. None of us, So there's somebody has come along and said, this is the way you should play, and they didn't know. They're wrong, whoever they were. I don't know who they were. They had a lot of nerve because they sure didn't come through us, the oldest ones. See, you would never learn that from me. I mean, you'd learn some things about playing the piano up here, but you'd learn a lot of two-hand stuff from us, That's the way we learned. That's how I learned. How I learned was looking over Tommy Flanagan's shoulder, to be honest with you. That's how I learned. I'd see a couple of chords, And I go home and I practice those chords all over that piano. That's how I learned, because Tommy Flanagan could play better at a young age. See, between Tommy Flanagan and Terry Pollard, see, they really could play, you know? And so Will Davis, he was entirely different, you know? He used to have an ending that he would play, and his ending that he would play at the end of a ballad was Giant Steps. That was his ending. He would play at the back of at the end of a song. And well, now they made Giant Steps. And then you got some cats who were writing these books, like, I could name a few. I wouldn't want to name them, but I could tell you this: they did not learn to play by the book that they wrote. You know, that's a lie. You know, see, they write these books and they write these patterns and stuff. They didn't learn to play like that, man. And don't you believe it? They learned to play, playing with big bands, playing the blues. You ain't had no time to be learning no modes. Like right now, I don't even know what the modes are. Mm-hmm. People tell you, oh, you got to learn all the modes. It doesn't make sense to me. You know, the modes.
Well, do you guys have any questions specifically?
I was just wondering, when you're speaking about concepts and things like that, I was wondering if you could elaborate. You mentioned, well, after we played the 16th note triplet, the importance of that. I was wondering if you could elaborate on that and tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, you see, what has happened now, see, people have gotten these patterns together, and these patterns don't include triplets and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so you had horn players. They have good facility. You know, people have good facility. The biggest drag is they all sound alike. That's the biggest drag. See, like you tenor players, y'all got to do something about that. Why was there a difference between Prez and Coleman Hawkins, Ben Webster, Eddie Lockjaw Davis? All them cats had different sounds. Why? Yusuf Lateef, all got different sounds. Can't nobody imitate Yusuf Lateef. You can't imitate those, but they all have different sounds. Why should the people now have the same sound, where you don't know half the time who's playing? And you really can't tell. Why? Because they don't believe in vibrato. And see, your vibrato, if you practice your vibrato is what's the difference between you and the next person. See, that kind of thing. And see, people don't do it. The sound is the same. Why you want to sound like everybody else? Doesn't make sense to me. Mm-hmm. Like we're supposed to have a sound on the piano. I don't want to sound like everybody else. You know, I don't want to sound like everybody else. I want to sound like something different. I think the piano is just such a beautiful instrument, you know. I listened to Monk play, and you had to hear the sound that came out of the piano, you know. And see, unfortunately, I saw some of the best, and it really messes you up. So it messes you up in a way. You know, the first time I can remember going to see Charlie Parker with strings, you know, and it was where we went to see Charlie Parker with strings was at the roller rink. See, the roller rink became a dance hall. So you go, and you have all these few little strings, not many strings. I guess it might have been, in all, it might have been 6 of them, 8, something like that, that's all. And Bird came out, and he started playing with those strings. And the feeling that I got, see, it makes it hard to listen to people, you know, because, see, when you play, I want you to give me that feeling. Whatever that feeling was that he gave me, I want you to give it to me. I want him to give it to me.